Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Couchbrotatopodcast. This is the third installment of our spooky season month where we're talking about some of the best horror movies to ever come on to the silver screen, and we have got an absolute masterpiece for you guys and gals today. Producer Adam and our good friend Kohl from the Knights of Degradation podcast join me to talk about the 1982 John Carpenter sci-fi horror masterpiece, The Thing. It's a really good one. We hope you guys and gals enjoy it. So, after this brief trailer, we bring to you The Thing.
100,000 years ago, it came to our galaxy. Trapped in the wasteland of Antarctica, it could not escape. Now, it is free to become one of us. John Carpenter's The Thing, rated R.
All right, I am joined on the show today by producer Adam. Adam, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. Can't complain.
Good. And we've got a special guest joining us today. Our friend, it's been a while since you've been on the program, Kohl from the Knights of Degradation podcast. Kohl, how's it going, man? It's been a long time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm doing okay. I could complain, but I will choose not to.
Well, you did enough of that before the show.
Oh yeah, it's all I do nowadays.
In the green room, as we call it, here in the industry. Did enough of that. But before we get into today's show, kind of a little topic. I texted Adam yesterday. Noticed that Amazon Plus has a Godzilla movie. But then I guess I found out through Adam it's not a movie, it's a TV show.
Yep.
What's it called?
Godzilla
Monarch?
TV show. Yeah.
Okay, what's it called, Adam? I don't want to, I'll fuck it up. I know you won't.
Monarch, Legacy of the Monsters. It is a new series premiering on November the 17th, and it fits into the Monsterverse, as they call it.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good segue. It has my all-time favorite actor in it, and actually Kohl's, too, if I'm not mistaken. And that's how I think you and I hit it off as becoming friends, was the fact we shared a mutual admiration for Kurt Russell.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's when you might have realized I might be worth talking to.
Well, the other way around. I don't know. Like I kind of had when we worked for that witch at the Big Blue. It might have been the other way around. I had that reputation for being like kind of standoffish when I didn't understand why.
No one said you were standoffish. Everyone said you were an asshole, but I didn't believe them.
Oh well, it's a good thing you did because I'm not.
Okay, sorry, that was a joke, and you guys didn't laugh, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. You know what, though? Like, we crack jokes in here all the time, and I think Adam and I are the only two people that ever listen to this show that laugh about them. So,
I got it, Cole. I didn't laugh audibly for the podcast viewers, but, you know. Yeah.
Well, you smiled, but I didn't want to call you out. I didn't want to be like that. But, yeah, I mean, Kurt Russell, he's been a favorite of mine, man, since actually, I think the first thing I remember watching him in was Overboard, which I love, and and then Tombstone, and then from there, just anything he was in, I would watch. My mom worked at a video rental store, so anytime I saw a movie with him come out, I just took it home, and that was it.
That's right. Your mom did work at a video store. The movie that we're talking about is how I discovered it, was when I worked at a video store, because I had never heard of The Thing, which is the movie we're doing today, the 1982 horror classic by John Carpenter. But when I worked at a video store from the time I was like 19 until I was 22, I used to go down these rabbit holes where I would get like really interested in an actor or a director, and I would just rent anything I could get my hands on. And I went down a John Carpenter rabbit hole. Before the days of the internet, our video store used to have, it might show my age, Leonard Maltin, who used to be on Entertainment Tonight, used to have this movie encyclopedia where you basically any movie that was ever made, you could reference it, and you could look it up by director, actor, actress, whatever. So I'd always, anytime I'd get obsessed with a certain actor, director, I'd go to the Leonard Maltin Video Encyclopedia Guide and look up and see if I could find all this stuff. So that's how I was introduced to The Thing, and was absolutely blown away with it. You gentlemen, what was your first introduction to this movie? Adam, I'll start with you.
Mine's kind of lame. It's not cool like working in a video store or anything. I
Or
saw
reading
it
the
on
Leonard
TV.
Maltin.
Yeah. Well, see, we had Video Hound as a movie encyclopedia, and I mean, I guess that doesn't really show my age, but yeah, I would always look at it. But I didn't see The Thing from it. I ended up seeing it on TV. It's kind of a lame story. I was like, huh, this is really interesting. It was a TV cut of it, so they cut all the super gory parts out, but they still left some of them in, and it was really enthralling. I ended up purchasing it after I realized it was a John Carpenter movie. Of course, I was a kid when I watched it first, but John Carpenter is one of my favorites, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to own this movie because honestly, for being a monster movie, it's one of my favorites. I'm a really big monster movie buff. I like my monsters. So.
Kohl, what about you? When was your introduction to The Thing?
Well, I kind of the same thing. I discovered it through John Carpenter first because we owned the movie Vampires. John Carpenter's Vampires, which is, a phenomenal movie that I absolutely loved when I was a kid. And I think it was my brother was like, hey, if you like that, you should check out this other movie. It's the same director or same maker or something. And that's when I first watched The Thing, and it just blew my mind. Wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before. And I remember thinking, I was like, wow, this is way better than Vampires.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? Bonus points. Friend of the show, former co-host Lucas, that's one of our favorite bad movies is John Carpenter's Vampires. We revisit that thing all the time.
Yeah, I think we've even talked about it before because it's still the only thing that has purring vampires in it, which I always bring up. And it has a Baldwin and James Woods. And I think you always say James Woods is just chewing on scenery the whole movie.
He is. And see, since we're a movie podcast, we're able to call him Jimmy Woods.
Oh, Jimmy Woods. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's like we call Robert De Niro's Bob De Niro on the show.
It's actually kind of funny to connect to what I do now. My first D&D character's name, or my second D&D character's name was Valak, and he was based off of the villain in that movie.
Oh, okay.
The incomparable Thomas Ian Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Silver for you Cobra Kai fans out there. But yeah, like, I don't know, like I haven't watched this movie in a while, but like I revisited it on Thursday for the show, and like, man, this thing still fucking holds up. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, especially for a practical effect movie, for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of like watching some of the effects, like when they would morph into these creatures. Like, that's fucking disgusting, but it's also like that's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just looks so real. Mm-hmm. And like nowadays you watch movies and you can kind of tell. I think people are just so used to CGI that they can kind of tell when it is. Mm-hmm. And yeah, The Thing, it just looks like real stuff happening. It's disgusting, but in a very beautiful way.
Yeah.
I'm always a sucker for things captured in camera.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll get into this. For those of you that have not seen this movie, first off, we're going to spoil the shit out of this. You've had ample time to see this. This movie came out in 1982. This movie is over 40 years old. No excuses at this point. It's been through the VHS, the Betamax, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, streaming. There's many ways you could have seen this by now. But what the fuck is this movie about? This movie is about an American research team in Antarctica that is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims. That is the synopsis according to our friends at IMDb. Simple premise, nothing too, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's not too ambiguous, so it's kind of cool. Like, I think it's what makes the movie work, is it really doesn't like have a bunch of different plot points going on. It's basically a very straightforward standalone movie. This team is trying to figure out what this creature is, and then it creates this aura of paranoia and distrust amongst the team, and that's it. I think it's what makes the movie so awesome. You don't have these side stories like two of the members have something cooked up or whatever. Nothing like that.
Right. And I think that and I know people argue me on this. That's one of the reasons why I like it so much, because another, famous Carpenter movie, Halloween, also has a very simple plot line, but I think that this one is more character driven, and it makes it complex within its characters, not necessarily the plot. And that's why I like it. It's very meaty that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and go ahead, Cole. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, buddy.
No, I was just gonna say I agree. I think it's his best script by far, and I know that the production took a long time, so he had a lot more time with the script than normal, than his other movies, and I think that's another reason this is so good. I wrote in my notes, like, every single second of this movie matters. There's not any B-roll. There's no waste. There's no nothing. Everything matters. Everything's like a hint to something else. I think that's that, and some other things we'll talk about later, is what contributes to its longevity, in my opinion. Why it's still the best horror movie.
Yeah, the thing I really like about it too is, like, the monster in this is not really the villain per se, but it's the paranoia that it creates. And, like, basically the villain is the entire team. It's like they can't trust one another because of this alien. That's what I think is really cool about this too. And this plot has been stolen many times since then, which we'll get into that much later.
Sure.
So yeah, that's I kind of dig that aspect of it as well.
Well, it's cool because it's like that, but it flips. Like you mentioned, his Halloween, it flips it totally. And I didn't come up with this. I saw someone else say this at some point, but
you can take credit for it. That's cool.
Okay, well, my original opinion, that you didn't edit that other part out yet, is that it just flips the script on horror movies, because in any other horror movie, there's safety in numbers, and when the people are together, that's when you have the calm. Like, when someone watching it can calm down and relax. But you just don't get to do that in this movie, because you never know if people are who they say they are, because of the way the monster works. So there's zero time to breathe in the movie.
Right.
And it's just nonstop, just tension and anxiety.
Yeah. That's like what I love about it. It's just the fact that this is supposed to be like, it's this kind of like a very smart thriller wrapped up as a B movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I know somebody who, when he shows people this movie, he doesn't show them the very beginning, like, because I think in the very beginning that you see like a spaceship crash or something like that.
Yep. I know the beginning of the movie's like that.
Yeah, he starts the movie after that, so when he shows it to people, they don't see that, so they don't even have the idea of an alien in their head. Or they didn't. Again, this was like high school time when we were showing people this movie. But I think that's even crazier, because at least when you see that, you kind of go in knowing that something crazy is going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool way to, like, introduce somebody to that too, because you're wondering, like, why the fuck is there a guy in a helicopter shooting at a dog? Yeah. I mean, you still kind of wonder that too, even with the introduction of the spaceship. But still, they're like watching it like that from that lens. It's like, fuck's going on here? Like, is this does Antarctica make people crazy?
Well, except Norwegians, because I think the Norwegian actually, like, spoils the whole movie, doesn't he?
Yeah,
but he does it in Norwegian, so it's fine.
Yeah,
he's right.
All right, well, let's get into the categories, gentlemen. The Tale of the Tape. This movie was released on June the 25th, 1982. This stars Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, Keith David, T.K. Carter, Richard Dysart, Charles Hallahan, and Richard Macer. Directed by John Carpenter, as we said. Rotten Tomatoes score of 85% from critics and a 92% score from audiences. This movie made $19.2 million on a $15 million budget. It didn't win any Academy Awards, unfortunately, and you could stream this currently on Peacock. The Cock has the thing. You Watch it at your leisure, so there's no excuse why you can't watch this.
I'm a child. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. We call it the cock all the time over here. I may have stolen it. I've heard other people call it that since then, so I don't know if I inadvertently ripped it off. But I'm taking fucking credit for it.
Hey, you're the first person I heard that from, and now I say it all the time too.
Well, good. I'm glad it's carrying on.
I've canceled our subscription twice just because I like screaming. We're no longer paying for the cock.
I get the cock for free.
Yeah.
My son actually, a few weeks ago, I let him stay up to watch the Sunday night football game, and he was on his phone. He goes, "Hey, Dad, they're streaming it in 4K on the cock." And I'm like, "Fuck." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Oh.
So like, we'll flip it over there, and I'm like, "Man, like, I hope he doesn't tell people that at school. Like, hey, the football game's on the cock or in 4K."
We get the cock for free from my sister-in-law. So
I pay $5 for the cock, but it's also got wrestling on it. Well worth it. And you get to watch cool movies like The Thing. So, did you know this category is facts and little tidbits about the movie behind-the-scenes stuff? This is the third of 5 collaborations between Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. The first being an Elvis made-for-TV movie, and then they did Escape from New York, which you can listen to in our vault. One of the earlier episodes we did, cheap plug of the show. Also, they did The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, and Escape from L.A. So, I'd say 3 out of 5 pretty good. I've heard that Elvis movie is pretty good, but Escape from L.A. is not good at all.
I like Escape from LA just because, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of grandfathered in. I just say they're all good.
I don't know. Like, for me, like, I always have said that Carpenter, I think, has one of the best runs for a director in the history of movies, but it seems like his quality kind of falls off after They Live. I think it's like when you get to the top, like They Live, and it's like kind of a steady decline after that. There's nothing really, like, we like John Carpenter's vampires, but, like, let's be real, it's not the same class as anything prior to that.
No,
you're not even close.
So
I think that John Carpenter is one of those directors. It's just like he's not Scorsese, he's not Spielberg, he's not like that big blockbuster director where like, you know, he does a movie you expect it to do, you know, $1 billion, but it's still one of those directors. It's just like, it's a John Carpenter movie, and everybody's like, oh, even like people that aren't cinephiles that don't watch movies all the time, they're just like, oh yeah, I know who John Carpenter is. You know, so that in itself is just a success, even if his movie doesn't do well.
right. It kind of makes, like, I don't think guys like him would be around today, though, just because of the way the film industry is.
Not. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't they wouldn't let him make The Thing like this.
Oh,
today.
No.
He's saying like, well, we need a couple of these characters to have their shirts off the whole time, and we need a couple of these characters to like go bang each other in a closet or something. Like, you know, like you said earlier, like there's no extra anything in this movie. It's all straight to the point, and they just won't make movies like that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no risk or there's no reward for the risk. So,
this movie is the remake of the Thing from Another World, which was, I believe it was produced by Howard Hawks, who is John Carpenter's idol, which is adapted from the novella Who Goes There, which I kind of already knew that, but that was kind of a cool little tidbit. But this next one here blew my mind. This is the first movie where Carpenter doesn't do the score.
yeah.
They originally wanted Jerry Goldsmith to do it, but I guess he turned it down. So they went out and got this unknown film composer named Ennio Morricone, who is my second favorite composer of all time behind John Williams, to do the score. So how's that for a backup pick?
You're right. I definitely think it worked out. Again, that's just something else about this movie. The score is amazing. I think I read once that he based all the music off of heartbeats and like the sounds your body makes, like on the inside. sounds stupid to say that out loud, but you can just really pick up on that in the movie. I mean, the music makes those scenes even more intense for sure, especially the ending. I don't know. I don't want to like jump to the ending right away, but the score plays a big part in the ending.
Well, apparently, if you were around in 1982, you would have been one of the few people that enjoyed this. There is the Oscar equivalent for bad movies called the Razzies. This score was nominated for best or worst original score at the Razzies. Didn't win.
Easy.
But later on in 2015, Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight, which is basically The Thing set in the Old West. And no, I mean, seriously, the plot's almost the exact same, except it doesn't involve an alien. Tarantino used unused portions of the score, and Marconi won an Academy Award for it.
Yeah, that's just bullshit. Like, that makes me mad.
Mm-hmm. Well, this next tidbit kind of ties into what you just said. This movie opened on the same day as another sci-fi classic. It opened up against Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, which Blade Runner finished. Never heard of it? Yeah, it's a little movie. It's got Harrison Ford. That one guy, he was in that one thing. You know what movie I'm talking about, right? You know, the guy with the hat and the whip, and then the spaceships and the talk, like the dogs and the, you know, that movie. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't think I've ever seen any of those movies.
Yeah, I know. Like, they're not very popular, neither one of them.
Well, fun fact, Blade Runner also based on probably one of the best sci-fi novellas ever written. Probably a novel. I guess it's long enough, but I liked it. I wish I lived in that time when like sci-fi stories were coming out like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the best sci-fi movies are from novels like that.
Right, yeah. Blade Runner came out the same day. The Thing finished 8 for the weekend, and Blade Runner was number 2. They both finished behind E.T., which was in its like 5th or 6th week at this point, which E.T. went on to be like the highest grossing movie of all time until Titanic. But what you were saying about this movie, though, both these movies were box office bombs, and also critics hated them. They were not very critically acclaimed either, and I guess it took years and years before people finally realized how great these movies were, which I thought was kind of a cool, cool synergy between the two movies.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is E.T.'s fault, because E.T. was like this beloved story that's like, I don't want to say it's a happy story, but the ending's pretty happy, if I'm remembering you right. And I think that people saw that, and then that's what they wanted in their science fiction just at that time.
Well, I think,
and then you have these two like gritty and dark movies come out that just go the opposite direction, and I think that's why it didn't do so well.
Well, I think it was just a change in movie going in general, because the 70s is kind of known for just the dark and gritty and more realistic tone in movies. I mean, like Taxi Driver, you know, all those movies coming out of the 70s. I think people kind of got tired of bleak films, and E.T. was kind of more of a, you know, an upbeat, I mean, it's science fiction, but still like a kind of an upbeat movie, and it kind of reflected what people were wanting. So I think that's kind of why E.T. was just the phenomenon that it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a fucking damn good movie. But
yeah.
See, I didn't like E.T., but again, I like my sci-fi really dark and sad and gritty, and I want it to make me feel bad when I'm done watching it.
E.T.'s good. I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite.
So if E.T. would have killed the Peter Coyote character, it would have been more your alley. Like that figure shoots like some kind of fucking laser or something and just wipe somebody out.
Phone home.
Or if it ended like Alf, like it just ends when the FBI agents show up, and that's the ending. Like that.
Don't get me fucking started on Alf, dude. That fucking ending bums me out. Kurt Russell was not the first choice to play MacReady. Screenwriter Bill Lancaster, which I did not know, is the son of film legend Burt Lancaster. And Bill Lancaster also wrote the Bad News Bears, the Walter Matthau one, not the Billy Bob one. So he's got a couple good movies on the old resume. But he wrote this part of MacReady with Clint Eastwood or Harrison Ford in mind, which obviously, this being kind of more of like a B movie, I don't think either one of them are going to take it, especially not Harrison Ford. But Universal's first choice, Nick Nolte, turned it down almost immediately. And I guess they offered it to, at points, Jeff Bridges, Tom Berenger, Scott Glenn, Chris Christopherson, Christopher Walken, Tom Atkins, and Don Johnson, among others. And it wasn't until a week before shooting began that Kurt Russell was hired based on the recommendation of John Carpenter.
That's just crazy to me. I know that's how like the business works and all that. And I think there's like 100 of those stories for like big roles. But man, I couldn't imagine anyone but Kurt Russell playing this part. I mean, it kind of, I mean, I think he would have been, you know, as popular without this movie. Like, I don't think he needs it, but it needs him, if that makes any sense.
I could maybe see Tom Berenger doing it, because Tom Berenger also kind of has that, I don't know, that rugged, like,
swagger.
Yeah, rugged swagger, yeah, that Kurt Russell kind of has in this. I could see Berenger doing it, but he's about the only one of those people that I could. Tom Atkins would have been at least interesting.
Could you imagine Christopher Walken with his interesting,
voice
timbre
cadence
in his voice? Yeah, voice cadence. There you go. I couldn't see him being MacReady at all.
No, he was like, when I read that, like, Christopher Walken, no way. I can maybe see Bridges, but I don't think would work. And Nick Nolte definitely wouldn't. Nick Nolte's too gruff.
We get Jeff Bridges in this, and then Kurt Russell's the dude.
Yeah, or Kurt Russell would have been in Tron.
Oh, yeah.
Tron's the same year too, so.
Yeah. Well, something else to add. You mentioned this being based off Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. I don't have that memorized. I was looking it up on my phone. I would say that this is definitely one of the few cases where a movie is insanely better than the story it's based on. Mm-hmm. And it's really because it's nothing alike. Like, it's not even close to as similar. Mm-hmm. Don A. Stewart was the pen name he used when he wrote it, and it was just kind of this. It didn't have the tension. It didn't have anything really that makes the movie great. So I just wanted to throw that in there since you brought up the short story.
Oh no, that's cool. That's I'm always like I love it when people contribute other little interesting tidbits about the movie. Do you have anything else? Did you have any other fun facts that I didn't go over?
Well, I would say just to compare that to Blade Runner, because that's based off of another great sci-fi story, and I feel the opposite about that one. I think Blade Runner is other than the fact that they're like replicants, there's really nothing else in common between those. And sorry, I did take some notes, but I didn't have them pulled up on hand, so I'm sorry about that.
You call yourself a podcaster?
Sorry.
We're only professional on this podcast.
Nothing but the best.
The other fun fact I have that's not like about the actual story or movie or anything is that Kurt Russell almost died on the set. I don't know if you were going to talk about that later or not.
I didn't have anything in my notes about it. Go ahead. I'm kind of interested in this now.
When he throws that like big stick of dynamite, it was real dynamite, and Kurt Russell just didn't know how big of an explosion was going to be. And when it knocks him back, that's real. That's really him being knocked back, and he almost died.
Oh shit!
Oh my god!
Yeah, I didn't know that until recently, so I was like, holy crap! I thought that was just part of the movie, but no, it actually knocked his ass back, and they had to stop filming for a little bit.
I did read something that he pulled a prank on Carpenter with a flamethrower. He showed up on set one day, like all bandaged up, his face and his arms were all bandaged up. He said the flamethrower burned him. To play a trick on John Carpenter.
See, that's one of the biggest 80s things that I can pull out of this movie is like it's sci-fi, it's got aliens, it's got paranoia, it's got tension, but the solution to everything is fire and dynamite. and that is the biggest 80s movie plot device that you can have in a movie like this.
Or just to shoot them.
Did you just burn everything? I mean, I think that's like I don't know. I feel like if I was in that situation, that'd be my exact response. Just burn it.
Yeah.
And I know,
with fire.
I guess I didn't write this down, but they do show this movie to like scientists who have to go live like in Antarctica. They show them this movie as part of their training. And like the question they always get asked is like, where do we keep the flamethrowers? And they're like, well, we don't actually have flamethrowers up here. Also, the one thing in this movie that what was killing all those guys, we don't have.
Right. Yeah, don't have to worry about that.
So when are we going to get our flamethrowers?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, we don't have to worry about that. Or do we? Adam, you got any interesting tidbits you want to add?
Yeah, I got a couple. I had down that this is one of John Carpenter's personal favorite movies of his. He kind of took the bombing of his movie pretty hard. He didn't like the critics hating on it so much. But I think that if he were a successful box office director like we were talking before, I think his career would have been way different and we wouldn't have gotten the great movies that we got from him.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I did see something that after this movie tanked, he had a multi-film deal with Universal that they canceled. Afterward.
Okay. Yeah. See, we might have gotten something completely different. And I don't know if I would want that. So.
Now, just to add that, I know that he said that he was really embarrassed about the special effects and that he was worried people would laugh at him because of how, like, I think he said specifically the head that like grows legs and crawls around. He was just like, people are just going to laugh at that. And then I know the guy who did the effects and everything was like super sensitive about how they looked. So no one said anything about him and they kept the lights down on him. So that's another reason why you don't get to see him so well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to hear it's one of his favorites for sure. Because it it deserves to be.
I bet
he's laughing his ass off now because he's like, yeah, it's it didn't do well when it came out. Now it's like the greatest movie ever.
Yeah, it's a cult classic. It's beautiful and all of its problems, for lack of a better term, I guess. But even so, that actually is a really good segue into my next fact. It actually is a benchmark for a lot of practical effect artists. They look at this film and they're like, okay, how can we do that practically? I was looking through a whole bunch of different factoids on the internet, and a lot of the critics panned the special effects. Like, hey, if I wanted to go see blood, I would go to a slaughterhouse, But a lot of the things that you see captured like on camera in this movie are just that. They're captured on camera. And if you have that in mind when seeing this movie nowadays, especially like with all of the CGI stuff in the movies, it's cheaper to do with CGI anyways. It's phenomenal. Like, you see a guy's face splitting in half. Like, that's freaking cool. Like, in camera, like, that's real. Not necessarily, it's not the guy's face splitting in half, but they made it real on camera, no CG, and that's cool. I really, like I said, I'm a big sucker for practical effects, and this one is just up there for me. Even if it was critically panned for its effects, it's still up there for me.
Can I ask a quick question? Have you seen the 2011 version?
Oh, the one with
yes.
Edgerton and Winstead.
Yeah, just real quick, what do you think of the effects in that one? Not even compared, but just do you like them, like what they did in that one?
I get why they did what they did. Like one of the scenes where they're like the thing is assimilating the other guy and like squishing his face up against him. Like, I get it. I get why they did that, but to me, it doesn't have the same effect as some of the things in the original. And you can see that it is CG. We were talking a bit earlier about how you can just tell it's CG, and I mean, as an audience member, you look at that and you're like, okay, I can tell that's CG. I know it's not real. Like you go see Fast and the Furious and you see a car swinging on a vine. Like, yeah, you know that's not real.
No, that
They're
is
going to
real.
do
That's
that in
100%
CG.
real. I've done it.
Yeah, that movie's just
And-
a documentary of Vin Diesel's life, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, man, I was
I
totally wrong.
I drink
I should go back and
Corona
watch this.
for that reason. After that documentary series.
Well, I
But
was just curious because the effects are definitely different, but I think I'm one of the few people who like the 2011 version. But I always wonder, like, what would have happened if we would have got, like I said, a more B movie style and a less like Hollywood version.
I like the new one for what it is, but I'm like, if you give me a choice between watching the new one and the old one, I'm always going to pick the old one.
You know, like I've never seen the 2011 one. I think it's because I didn't want to be disappointed. So you guys are saying it's decent?
It's decent. It's not as good as the original, I don't think.
Yeah, and I agree. Like between the two, I'm going to pick the old one all day. But I think they make a pretty good like back to back watch. And I keep making the Blade Runner reference, but I'd compare it to the Blade Runner sequel that recently came out. Like it's not anywhere close to the same, but it's still more of the thing that I loved. You know, so I think it's worth a watch. It's not going to blow your mind, but I think the very first time you see the thing in it, I was like, holy shit, because it was just cool to see it like updated, I guess.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
So is it a remake or like a prequel or?
It's a prequel, I think.
Oh, is it?
If I
Okay.
remember. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it, not to spoil it, but I think it ends with them chasing the dog on the plane with the helicopter. I think.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Maybe I'll give it a like one of those. You know what? There's nothing else to watch. Maybe I'll give this a shot now.
Yeah, it either ends that way, or I think it should have ended that way. It's one of those two.
If it's a prequel, it
Cool
definitely
if it
should
did.
end
I
it
don't
that way. That would have
remember.
been a cool way to end it.
Mhm.
Well, Adam, what else you got, buddy?
Going in from practical special effects to Foley artistry. They did some pretty cool sound effects on this movie, and one of the sound effects, like they soaked a towel in egg yolks and like ripped it and smacked it for some of the transformation effects. My favorite though is one of the effects that they did for the dogs is the Foley guy got all the dogs in his neighborhood together and put him in his house, and then he would walk around in a trench coat outside of his house and tap on the windows to get the dogs to bark. I was like, huh, that's one way to capture that sound. That's
Right.
pretty funny. And see here, in 1982, before its release, Fangoria magazine had a contest. People were asked to draw the thing, even though they hadn't seen it. And if anyone could guess what it was going to look like, they actually won a trip to Universal Studios.
Oh, that's
pretty cool. Yeah.
I wonder if somebody
Um,
drew a dick. You know, somebody out there had to have done it. It was one person had to have done it. Yeah, here's the thing.
We have so many pictures of bits.
It actually could be
Throw
the
'em all
basis
out.
for Superbad.
No, this is a picture of what the thing's going to be streaming on in 40 years.
The cock.
God.
Just to add to the sounds, like, again, this is kind of goes to how detailed the script is. The sounds are so important, and I remember you can actually hear keys drop. There's like a scene where like someone gets into the blood, but it was locked, and I think it's
Mhm.
Windows who has the keys. I don't remember exactly who has the keys, but there's a bunch of commotion, and you can hear keys fall and hit the ground, and that's mind blowing. That's so much detail. and again, just adds to why this movie is so great. And again, why I don't think they would bother putting a detail like that in nowadays.
Oh no, that would totally be something they'd skip over.
The details are fantastic in this movie, and I think that it is definitely an art that's lost to time in storytelling and movies nowadays. It's just like they don't. The movies back then thought 2 steps ahead, and movies nowadays are just so dumbed down.
Yeah.
You don't get that kind of detail there.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with just audiences in general now. The attention span of audiences is so short that they're not going to pay attention to it anyways.
Yeah, I feel like it's a cultural thing, right? It's just you got TikTok and YouTube and all these other audiences want their cake and they want it now. They don't want to wait for their cake, So
maybe that's how we'll change this podcast at the beginning of the year. We'll just be like Couch Potato Podcast. We'll just bring up a movie it's good, and that'll be the whole episode.
Well, I don't know. I always I think a lot of that's true, but part of me wonders how self-fulfilling it is. Because I think people do want good art, and just not even just movies, but art in general is so dumbed down. But is it dumbed down because that's what people really want, or is it just what people making the art think people want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it's all that we have. Because I think of the Marvel movies, and I really don't like those very much. I haven't seen a lot of the new ones.
Adam and I are starting to come on board to that train as well.
Yeah.
But, you hear the people who watch those movies talk about how they wish they were more like the comics, and they wish they had a lot more detail and stuff like that. And they would prefer low budget movies that are just better. So I don't know. I think you're right, but I do think we're at a tipping point where people people were kind of thinking more like us, where it's okay, that was fun, but let's get back to really good movies, like what we saw in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Agreed.
I think it's a multi-headed beast, really, because it's not just audiences, it's not just the artists, but the funding. You hit the nail on the head with low budget stuff. I would prefer low budget over this has to be a blockbuster movie, like the last Ant-Man movie. It was only okay. I liked it as a movie, but it would have been better if it were like the original Ant-Man, because it kind of was not Marvel's Ace in the Hole. It was just something off the beaten path. And the people that are funding these movies nowadays are no, we need it to be blockbuster. You need to have these actors in it. It needs to be this long. And instead of taking a risk on a low budget movie, there are no more low budget movies. It's just not a thing anymore. I forget. I think it was the Star Wars episode that we did on this podcast. You can listen to it on our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, Adam coming in with a cheap plug. Awesome.
But Mark actually said that he did not watch Star Wars when it came out. He decided he wanted to go see, I think it was Andre. Pretty sure that was the movie he went to go see. Something like that. I don't know. It was what was it? It was a dumb animal movie. Andre is much later.
Hey, don't knock on Andre. Andre has a special place in my heart because that was the movie that allowed me to sneak in to watch Natural Born Killers.
But we're not going to see movies like that anymore. They just don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, yeah, I think it's just I think the studios, they just want to get the biggest return on investment now, and I think a lot of that low budget stuff is gravitating towards they're breaking it up and turning it into more mini series stuff for the streaming services versus putting it out in theaters.
And the format is not conducive to a series either. If you decide to take a movie that should be a movie and break it up into a mini series, it ruins the thing sometimes.
Yeah. I saw because of the strikes and stuff, someone posted on Twitter this picture of 50 movie titles, and it says, look at all these movies that are going to get canceled now because of the writer's strike. And no shit, every single one was a sequel or a remake, and none of them were whereas like an original movie.
Mm.
So I right there with you, just burning out on that stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they would rather not. They're not looking at it like in terms of like they're gambling at it like a craps table now or whatever. It's just like, okay, you know, 5th sequel to Marvel movie. The last 4 have been like $500 million or more. Let's just put out another one of those versus taking like $40 to $50 million and trying to invest in something original. And we may lose your shirt on it, we may not. But I would rather it's like, oh, let's just take the safe bet and go with the Marvel movie that people have seen time and time again, or like the 17th Jurassic Park or the 43rd Fast and Furious movie, which I'm kind of getting burned out a little bit on those too. But
it's definitely a cultural thing too. So it's kind of the same way with like books and comic books right now, because there's these independent things going on that are great, and it's the same with movies. There's some really great independent movies coming out. Nobody talks about them and nobody cares. Mm-hmm. And like even on channels that try to promote independent stuff, all they end up doing is bitching about Disney and, you know, what the mainstream's doing without shining a light on the stuff that they're currently asking for. So again, but I think part of it's just self-fulfilling. It's more about what can we profit from versus what's going to, you know, be better and push art forward.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And it's sad too, because some, you know, small movie that could have been low budget could have kickstarted the next big IP that is a franchise, but we will never know because we're stuck in the same franchises we have.
Yeah.
Adam, got any other tidbits to add before we move on?
We got one more. Kurt Russell decided to take long drags on cigarettes before some scenes to make his first breath look more smoky, to make it look a little bit colder.
God damn, I bet that looked cool as fuck too, watching him fucking like just rip a heater.
Yeah, geez, man.
But
I listened to an interview, Bill Simmons, podcaster. He has a couple programs on The Ringer, and he interviews Kurt Russell, and he was talking about his interview, and he said that Kurt Russell came in smelling like he had rode a motorcycle to the interview. He didn't have like an entourage or anything. He set his helmet down. He reeked of like Marlboro Reds, and he's like, "This is like the fucking coolest guy in the room." That's exactly how I pictured. Like that's how I picture him too.
Yeah.
I think that's why like I love the dude so much. But great stuff, guys. A lot of fun facts. A lot of shit I didn't even know about when I was doing my research. So appreciate the all the interesting tidbits. The next category we got is the Martin Scorsese This Is Cinema Award for the best scene of the movie. This is based off the internet meme, the Martin Scorsese, where he says "This is cinema." So best scene of the movie. I have my personal favorite, but I want to hear what you guys had first. Adam, I'll start with you. What do you think was the best scene in this movie?
I know that a lot of people don't like a line from this scene, but I really like the scene with the heart attack and the defibrillator. I really do. It's so cool. Just all the effects in it, and the way it ends, and just the cheesiness of the line in the scene. That's probably going to be my favorite. I know it's not like the cerebral. This is the best scene because of you know, this story reason or whatever. But yeah, that's my favorite.
Kohl,
I was not expecting that when I watched it the first time. I was like,
yeah.
They're going to save this guy.
That kind of got me started. I've seen this movie at least 10 times, and that scene gets me every fucking time when that arm comes, or like his arm just gets swallowed by his chest. Gets me every time.
Dude, every single time. Like it just creeps me out. Like I know it's coming. It's like a Jack in the Box. Like I know it's coming, but it's still going to scare the shit out of me. I guess more with that scene, they used that was a real person on the desk there. He was an amputee or a quadriplegic. It was a guy who didn't have any arms and legs, and they put a mask on him. So that's an actual person there for that scene, which is really cool.
Wow.
I gotta go. I gotta go with, Russ, I think we've even talked about this before, so I think it is the same as yours. The blood scene, like the blood testing scene, that's so iconic. And I don't think you can. I don't think you can take out any scenes from this movie and it be the same. I think they're all important, but that blood test scene, man, gives me chills every time. I know exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. I'm still on the edge of my seat, just so anxious about it.
Yeah, that's mine too. It really puts to the forefront the true villain of the movie is just the paranoia that's being caused by this alien on the site. And yeah, like I said, I think a compelling scene is like if you like something like as tense like that, it's like you kind of know what's going to happen, but yet you're still captivated by it. Yeah. And like I always can tell, like for me, whenever I'm like really wrapped up or engrossed in a scene, is if I'm sitting in a chair and I sit forward to really study it. And like when I was watching this the other night, I just kind of sat up my chair and nothing around me was happening except for what was going on in that scene. And it's still like, okay, who's it going to be? You know, and like it's still, to this day, it's still like I was still shocked that it turned out to be the last person I expected.
Yeah.
Which I forget the character's name, but it's the David Clennon character.
Yeah, and he doesn't even. It's so crazy because the more you watch it, he doesn't even look surprised, and everyone else is so terrified, and he's just sitting there like, fuck. Like, oh, so cool. And so many other movies, like you said, have just taken this scene and morphed it, but none have ever done it as good. And like I said, you know, this was kind of the first horror movie to flip it to where there's not safety in numbers. And now you have scenes where people are accusing each other and stuff, and it's supposed to be the same, but there's just none that are so enthralling like this one. I would go as far as to say one of the best scenes in movie history, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, Adam, sorry, as cool as that arm getting bit off, it's got to be the blood test.
To you guys, I'm going my own way. I'm forcing my opinion on people, but I know that your scene is better overall. So
honorary mention, I really like the ending between McCready and Childs where they both don't trust one another, and they basically are just like come to the conclusion like, well, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
And they had, like Kurt Russell hands him the bottle of, what's that brand? J&B.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the brand.
Yeah.
Is it though? I don't know. I don't know if you've seen the theory that it's actually gasoline or petrol or whatever.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to jump into talking about the ending right away or anything. But.
We'll save it because I've actually got a category specifically for this, so we'll save it for a little bit.
I got some thoughts too. I got some thoughts and theories.
All right.
Yeah, that's like the most fun thing about this movie, right? Is talking about the ending.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's the blood test scene is the winner for the best scene. We need to change the name of this category because I think it's kind of morphed into like unintentionally hilarious dialogue, but we never really came up with like the best line of the movie. So this could be the last time you guys and gals hear the Paul Walker "I Said Forget About It" award for best line, good or bad, in the movie. For me, I'm nominating the "Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding" after Norris's head becomes like this spider-looking creature. And Palmer says that's my pick. It's not the best, but it's the one I always kind of get a chuckle about a little bit.
Every time he says it, I laugh, and I think I've seen a couple of different reviews of people that say it takes them out of the world of the thing a little bit. Just because they're laughing about how ridiculous it sounds during that moment.
Yeah.
It's so human though. Like I think that's what any of us would say. I know like me when something totally unexpected happens that's making a bad day worse, that's always my first line. Like, oh, you got to fucking be kidding,
Yeah. I'm the same way.
That would be so I picked two, like you said, good and bad. So that was my hilarious one that I thought was really good. But like an actual well-written line, I love the ending dialogue when McCready says, "We'll just sit here and wait a while." Just gives me chills every time. Sometimes I'll just watch that scene because of that dialogue.
That's really good dialogue. I really like that. I went for a little bit more on the funny side with mine. Although mine is definitely yours, Russ, with the you got to be fucking kidding me. But I picked out the forget the actual line. Hang on, I wrote it down. I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch.
Oh yeah, Donald Moffat, which I was introduced to him first as the president in Clear and Present Danger before I noticed him in this. I only know him from this movie and Clear and Present Danger, and that's it. I'm sure he's probably had, like, you look him up on IMDb, he's probably got this distinguished 40, 50-plus year career. But I only know him as the President of the United States and then in The Thing.
Yeah.
And to hear him in Clear and Present Danger and then throughout most of this movie, he's kind of calm. He's almost kind of a milquetoast character a little bit. Not quite like a coward, but he's just kind of like very reserved. And then like to hear him fucking yell, like, whoa, shit.
Yeah.
You go, Donald Moffat. And I know that's not his character's name, but I'm just going to call him Donald Moffat. All right, so who wins? I would probably say the best line of the movie is probably got to be something from that the final sequence. So Kohl, we're going to give it.
I think so. Yeah.
To you.
We'll go with the non-funny one. We'll go with the serious one.
And Adam, let's come up with something here this week to where we could just change this to like the best line of the movie. As much as I love the Paul Walker "I Said Forget About It" award, let's just save that for like a good bad line. Which, Kohl, have you seen? You know what we're talking about?
I don't know.
It's a line. It's a scene from Too Fast, Too Furious. Paul Walker and Tyrese Gibson are walking out of a police station, and Tyrese is badgering Paul Walker, trying to get information from him, and then Paul Walker just like serious, like he's performing in the fucking Godfather 2, because I said forget about it, cuh, and it just it just goes to black, and it goes on to the next scene.
I've never had the privilege of seeing that movie.
Well, honey, you're missing out. All right. The McLovin Award for the best or scene-stealing performance. Do you gentlemen, Kohl, I'll let you lead off with your nominee.
Yeah, if we're talking just like not Kurt Russell, right? Like not the lead.
Well, normally this category is for like someone in a supporting role, although Adam and I discussed earlier that it's a little more difficult for this movie because most of the characters have about the same amount of screen time, at least like Wilford Brimley, Russell, Keith David, some of the main characters, like someone like Richard Macer and Dicer kind of toned back a little bit. But for this category, it's anybody but Kurt Russell since he's the lead.
Well, I think you have to hand it to Keith David because I think it's crazy that he held his own, like going toe to toe with Kurt Russell, so to speak. And I love Keith David, and I've, ever since this too, I've been just as interested in him as I have Kurt Russell. He's just not in as much stuff that I'm into. But I remember watching Pitch Black when it came out, and I'm going, I know that guy from somewhere. Who is that guy? And I watched the credits, and it said Keith David, and I was like, oh my God. And then I went back and watched the thing again. He's fantastic. He's every bit as good in this movie as Kurt Russell is, as his character. So I would definitely hand it to Keith David.
I think this is his first movie role, as a matter of fact. I think he came off of he was a stage actor prior to this, if I'm not mistaken.
I know he does. I know he does stage acting, but I didn't know that. I didn't know this was his first movie. That's That's crazy.
Adam, who is your nominee?
Well, I want to give a honorable mention to Wilford Brimley because he's excellent in everything, and I really like the actor.
Not everything.
No. Even if the movie sucked, or if his performance was hammed up, he's still good. I will give him that. He does. The man does no wrong with me. So,
Well, as we discussed
but
in a couple weeks ago on our Hard Target episode, yeah, he's really going for it.
where he just says gibberish at one point, and we're just like, "Yep, that's whatever he's saying." Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to Keith David as well. It's just such a good character, and interesting side note, he plays the Arbiter in the Halo series, video game series, which has a alien life form named the Flood that assimilates biomass and steals their knowledge, which kind of sounds like a movie we all know he was in.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm giving it to Keith David as well, simply because it's Keith David. That's it.
Yeah, he's so awesome. I actually didn't even realize he was the Arbiter, but as soon as you said that, it like clicked. But he's in Mass Effect also, first Mass Effect, which is one of my favorite games.
Oh, that's such a cool game too.
Another reason I got really into it is because anything with Keith David, man, I'm in.
Yeah.
All right, unanimous. Keith David wins that category. I'm going to skip over the Welcome to Dumpsville Population U Award for the performer you'd recast, because let's be real, there's nobody in this that needs to be recast. They did a really good job, so we don't even need to go into it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, just to add to it, like, you could, like, if we wanted to be dicks, we could talk about, like, the background actors, or, like, a different breed of dog would have been cool. But I don't think anyone, like, everyone in this movie gave like an A+ performance, so I couldn't think of anybody.
Could you imagine like a pug just running through the snow,
or a wiener dog? All right, the unsolved mysteries of the movie. Since you guys are wanting to discuss the ending, the unsolved mystery of the movie is MacReady or Childs the thing. That's kind of the biggest mystery I think we need to figure out about this. I'll let you guys cook in the kitchen a little bit. What do you think? Adam, we'll start with you.
So I've heard several different theories, like, we know that it's not Kurt Russell because you can see his breath at the end, but you can see both their breath, I really don't have anything other than that. Like, I want to say that Kurt Russell isn't the thing, but I also have not heard that it's gasoline either. So I'm kind of curious to hear Kohl's thoughts on this.
Well, I'll start by saying that it's ambiguous and there's no definite answer. And anyone who says there's a definite answer, I think they're wrong. And I think it's why this movie has been around for so long and is still considered great and will still be considered great when it's 100 years old. But that being said, yeah, the theory is that MacReady, because they make a reference in the movie that they're out of alcohol at some point. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense that he would have it on him, but he made Molotov cocktails though. So some people, it's fun to think about. He actually filled it with gasoline. And they also talk in the movie about how they shouldn't share food. They should all make their own food, not share it. So the fact that he hands it to Childs and he just drinks it no problem. Right after that, Kurt Russell smirks and laughs a little bit. So that's kind of a popular theory. And then to add on to that, there's a scene where Childs is like on lookout. He's like looking out the window and it cuts away and it cuts back and he's gone, but the door's open. The coats are actually all in different spots. Like they were all knocked off and then put back up, and one's missing. And some people say Childs has a different color coat on when you see him at the end. It's like really dark and snowy, so it's kind of hard to tell. My personal opinion, I think the biggest thing that leans into Childs being the thing at the end is the chess match that Kurt Russell has on that computer, because it like cheats. The computer cheats and beats him, and I think the script was written so tight. I think that's kind of alluding to the end that no matter what Kurt Russell does, he's going to lose. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I think either, like in my mind, even if Child's not the thing, they're both still going to die at some point because that's just how it's going to work. So just my opinion is that chess game, and he like, what does he do? He like pours his coffee or whatever in it and breaks the computer.
Yeah.
And I think
he pours the whiskey. He pours the whiskey into it.
Yeah. Yeah, pours his drink into it. Well, he also burns down the whole fucking place, So I think that kind of parallels that.
I've read theories about the way that the lighting hits the actor's eyes. That if it seems to be like if there's like light kind of illuminating around their eyes, that's supposed to indicate they're human. And then when it doesn't do that, it indicates that they could have been assimilated by the thing. I've read about that, but then that's also been dispelled because there's been a couple instances the David Clinton character has light shining around his eyes. Of course, we all find out that he's totally been taken over. So I was going to kind of leave it up to you guys. When I watch it, I kind of think at times that Childs is, and then there's been a couple times where I like going back to what you you were saying about McCready is going to lose. That's kind of like what I've thought too, but like I kind of think that he is the thing because like as noble of a fight he's put up, like eventually like it gets him. And then there was a Thing video game that came out. What was that? 2002.
I don't think I've ever played it.
Yeah, and then they kind of give you like they show that Childs has died and he was human.
No, okay.
They don't mention anything about McCready at all.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's fun to like kind of play around with it, and like it seems like every time I watch it, I kind of get a different perspective on it. But
yeah,
I don't know. Like
I've always thought it was Childs.
I kind of did. Like when I watched it the other night, that's kind of what I thought too, because I think it's just kind of the way he's looking at Kurt Russell's character. Like it's like he's almost waiting for his opportunity. Because he kind of is like looking at him with like almost like a scowl, like he's waiting, like a predator waiting to pounce. Whereas Kurt Russell's kind of playing it more cool, like, okay, like I know what you are, and I'm ready, and like I've got like this plan to get you. So it's, I don't know, that's kind of the way I felt on Thursday night. But I could watch it again tomorrow night, think something completely different.
Yeah, I think, again, just not to keep saying it, but I think it just lends to how great the script is written. I think it's written that way on purpose. I think it's I think there's these little hints on purpose, but it doesn't come out right and say. And I think there's things that are contrary on purpose, too, just to keep you guessing and to keep you unsure. And it's just all part of the theme and the feeling of the movie. So I think if it ended with Childs being the thing and like killing McCready and then that's the end, the movie wouldn't be anywhere near as good. I think just that very last shot, that very last scene is what makes the whole ride worth it, kind of.
Yeah, it's basically been the theme of the whole movie anyways, is like the audience is trying to figure out who it is too, as well as the crew. And no one ever really figures out who it is. So they kind of like make the audience kind of leave the movie feeling the same way. It kind of works better that way.
Yeah, you're just uneasy. There's no closure at all. And that's kind of a big difference between movies now, right? And movies now don't leave you feeling unfulfilled, like on purpose. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, there's just no closure. Like we don't know. We're never gonna know. It's just how it is.
Now, we were talking about Marvel movies before, but that's one of the big reasons why I like Infinity War better than Endgame or other Marvel movies is because of the ambiguous ending of how, like, what's going to happen now, or that sort of ending is just so great. You don't get that in a lot of movies, and I feel like it enhances the story that much to where you can draw your own conclusions.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, gang, watch the movie. Let us know your thoughts and comment. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your take on it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's the ambiguous ending is kind of what makes the movie a masterpiece in my eyes.
Yep.
I would agree.
Now,
So if anyone feels differently, they should tag you on Twitter and argue with us about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Whoop will fight about it.
Yeah.
I'm fixing for a Twitter fight.
I do have a throwaway movie mystery. It's not as important as the ending or the ambiguity. But
does Wilford Brimley have diabetes during this? Or why does Wilford Brimley look 60 when he's 32?
Yeah, it's true. Man, I really wish that they had a scene with him eating oatmeal in it.
I forgot all about that. He was the Quaker Oats guy, too. I texted you earlier, and I said he was most known for Cocoon and the diabetes commercials. Completely forgot he was the fucking Quaker Oats spokesman. Forgot all about it.
Oh, man.
But the computer, when it shows the kind of simulation of the cell taking over the other cells, and then they put in the calculations for how long is it going to take for this thing to take over the entire planet. I think it's some random number like 27,000 hours or something like that. It's like, that's a really specific computer program. What are they running? Like, how did they do that? How did they make the computer, especially in the time period that it's set in? How did they make that program? And why is it so accurate?
Well,
it doesn't make any sense to me.
Adam, I have no answer for you on that one. It's a good segue into the next category, though.
Okay, let's go for it.
The award for the most 1982 moment of this movie, obviously the computers.
Computer.
Well, I had the chess wizard game that McCready's playing in it too. It would be between that and then when Childs and the David. I always forget the David Clinton character name, but when they're watching the old top-loading VHS tape and they're watching game shows.
Yeah. Man.
That'd be the most 1982 moment for me. But I would say the computers. Because, I mean, that shit looks like very... Because I was in elementary school in 85, and that's the kind of shit I had to work with in 1985.
Good old command line stuff.
Yeah. Kohl, do you have a nominee for the most 1982 moment of this movie?
I just put down Kurt Russell's hair and beard.
That beard and that hairstyle will work in any time period. If I could, I would totally fucking rock that look tomorrow. But I can't.
I don't disagree, but when if I'm out in the wild and I see someone with that haircut, I instantly think of this movie in this time period.
Yeah.
So I would agree with the computers for sure.
Yeah, I love how slow it moved when it's like the cell was like it's just like it just made that beep as it moved closer. Yeah, the computer programming is definitely very 1982-ish.
Someone should edit that scene and have them just watching like the DVD logo bouncing around, waiting for it to hit the corner.
Well, why didn't they do that in the Thing remake? They might save that for the Thing too. Thingin'.
Yeah,
Thingin'.
Be thingin'.
Fingered. Oh.
All right. I'm still trying to find a corporate sponsor for this category. I think, Adam, a few weeks ago, we used the Waffle House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've used Bob Evans. Have not heard from either one yet. So the next contender is this is the hot off the skillet take presented by Applebee's for your hot take regarding this movie. So, Kohl, you got a hot take regarding this movie?
I think I said it earlier. Best movie of the 1980s.
That's
extremely hot take.
Yeah. That's sizzling. Someone's eating good in the neighborhood tonight.
Yeah, I think probably just to be simpler, better than Blade Runner is probably an easier way to say that, because I think Blade Runner, a lot of people that are into sci-fi and horror consider that the best movie of the 80s, maybe. In these, maybe, I don't know.
Blade Runner's definitely not my camp. I'm more of a Back to the Future guy.
Yeah. I see. I'm not a big fan of Back to the Future, so yeah, I would.
All right, Kohl, it's been nice having you on the show. That's gonna wrap.
I'm sorry. To be fair, I've only seen them all once.
Oh, we gotta change that.
I don't
But
know if I don't know if it matters, but yeah, best movie of the 1980s. Which honestly, it's kind of tough because I love Akira that came out in 1988, and that's always been the movie I consider the best one.
It's a good movie.
But really thinking, like honestly, between the two, I'd pick The Thing every time.
okay, that's a hot take, and that's a very Applebee's worthy hot take. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of their 3-course specials. Applebee's, if you're listening, I'm really plugging
Are
you.
you
I'm trying.
You ready for a 2 for 20? Because I got a hot take as well.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so I think that this movie, being a John Carpenter movie, is better than Halloween.
Really? Okay.
That is my hot take. Yeah,
Well, you guys are
I
like
think it's.
trying to piss me off at 10:57 at night. But no, go ahead. Why do you think this is better than Halloween?
So I've seen Halloween more recently than The Thing, and just watching it this last time, and I mentioned it earlier. Halloween is very simplistic in its story. It's guy goes crazy, goes to the neighborhood, kills people. Like that's a pretty simple storyline. This
Hey, if
one
you're
is
selling it
just
to
more.
a movie executive, that's
Yeah,
one
and
sentence
I mean, and
pitch.
it'll sell movie tickets for sure, but I think this one just is more meaty. It's got a lot more nuance in the characters. It's got more tension. Like Cole said earlier, like usually you have that time period where everyone's together and the tension kind of like dissipates, and you don't get that in this movie. And I think that just the detail in the movie, the uh, and Cole hit the nail on the head on all these points too. Is like you can't take anything out of this movie because every single scene matters, and it's that I think makes it better than Halloween.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought mine was pretty good, but then you guys kind of just basically trumped me. But I was looking over the films of 1982. It's a pretty good list. E.T., Blade Runner,
Mm-hmm.
Rambo: First Blood, 48 Hours, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Gandhi, which won Best Picture this year at the Academy Awards, Poltergeist, Officer and a Gentleman, Rocky III, Conan the Barbarian, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Tron, Tootsie, and The Verdict. Pretty iconic class of 1982. My hot take was I think the Thing is the best movie of that class, the best film of 1982, which I thought was a pretty good take coming in. But of course, Cole shit all over that take with the best movie of the 80s. So job well done, sir.
Well, it's funny because I disagree with you. I don't think it's the best movie from 1982.
Well, how's it the best movie of the 80s if it's not the best movie of 1982?
I was just I was just making a joke. Sorry.
Cole, you're throwing me off my game. Once you said you don't like Back to the Future, you fucking just my night's gone to shit.
I'm sorry.
All right, but all good hot takes, gentlemen. And like I said, Applebee's, if you're listening, we're looking for sponsorship on the show. I would love to put the hot off the skillet take presented by Applebee's. Play a commercial. I don't care. I'm at your whim. Get a hold of me.
You gotta get a little like sizzle sound.
Well, if Applebee's wants to pay me money to plug this on here, I'll totally do it. I will do whatever they want.
So if like someone says a take that's not a hot take, does it get sent back?
No, we'll just delete it out.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Send it back to the kitchen, if you will.
Yeah,
It's not hot enough.
it's not hot.
This
Need
is
to warm that
lukewarm.
up a bit.
Put this back on the skillet for a minute. All right, last category, gentlemen. The Hall of Fame, which, Cole, we come up with a number of different questions if we were to create the Couch Brotato Podcast Hall of Fame. And we're still looking for sponsorship on this. I do have Apple Pay. I have PayPal. I have Venmo. If you want to help make the Couch Potato Podcast a reality, you can send me money. I will gladly provide you links to that as well so we can get that ball rolling. And I'm just begging for money at this point. But we come up with like little categories. Could be fun categories. We try to determine whether this particular question would go in the Hall of Fame. So, would the team of John Carpenter, Kurt Russell go into the Hall of Fame for director-actor teams?
Yes.
For sure, yeah.
Okay. I would say for me, anyways, it would first would be Scorsese and De Niro, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
De Niro or Scorsese and DiCaprio is against it. But yeah, I think Kurt Russell, if you're putting in 5, I could see that being a definite first ballot Hall of Famer for that duo.
For sure. And the movies that he's in with Carpenter are mostly good too.
Yeah. With the exception of Escape from LA. Hey, you cut me, Kohl, earlier, and it hurt, so I'm cutting you back, all right?
Sorry.
Revenge.
This plot, and this is from producer Adam, this plot point used in popular culture, which whether they've used it in movies, television shows, video games, comic books, whatever, I would say, yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet. Like I said earlier, this exact plot was used in The Hateful Eight. I do remember something similar in an X-Files episode. The episode escapes me off the top of my head, but you've also mentioned it was in video games as well.
Yeah, so the entirety of the Among Us video game is based off of this movie and Alien. So, I mean, it's pretty much a carbon copy of the plot. I mentioned earlier that Halo had the Flood as an enemy. It's basically the Thing, interstellar assimilator, trying to get all the knowledge of the universe. The X-Files episode, I believe it's in the first season too, where it's a worm and they go to Antarctica and they're all trapped together. It's literally just ripped from the Thing, and it's pretty pervasive. I think it's just because it's such a easy thing to write about is people's paranoia. So,
okay,
well,
Kohl.
I would go so far as to say it's not even like people basing it off the scene. I think it's become a full trope now. Like it's just a style. It's not even like there's probably directors who do scenes like this and they've never seen the Thing before. They were just taught this style of storytelling. And that's again talking about how iconic the movie is. I think it's kind of transcended just being like that scene or that feel of the movie is just a trope now. A bunch of people trapped in a place and they don't know who's real and they don't trust each other. That's it's far beyond just what it originally was.
So definitely Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Wilford Brimley.
Yes. I mean, let's be real. I'm a sucker for Wilford Brimley, so I'm gonna say yes for that.
I'm gonna say no, simply because if you were to go through things that he's most known for, being spokesperson for diabetes has got to be at the top. I completely forgot about him being the Quaker Oats spokesman, but now I definitely remember that. He was in Cocoon, which has gained steam recently as they try to use it as a comparison point between him being, I think, age 45 when that movie was made, and then Paul Rudd being 45. It's like, how does Wilford Brimley look? How is he 45 when he looks like he's 75, and Paul Rudd is 45 and he looks 25? And then, for me, I will always remember him as the cleaner from the movie The Firm.
Okay.
Because he kind of talks, he tries to talk in a risque manner to Tom Cruise's character about some photographs that he took of Tom Cruise cheating on his wife. But he kind of he makes him very PG-13 sounding, and it just cracks me up. So I always remember him from that too. And he also tries to chase after Tom Cruise on foot, which is a fucking bad idea. Because I mean, we all know Tom Cruise is the world's fastest actor.
And he's also perpetually 75, so he shouldn't be running.
Right.
Wilford Brimley, not
And
Tom Cruise.
he's got diabetes. I did have 80s movies written down, but I think we've pretty much established that it's definitely a Hall of Famer. So I'm going to call a mulligan on that one. Kurt Russell is a badass. I'm going to say yes. I think it's basically all of him. His Hall of Fame would be Escape from New York, because Snake Plissken is like an all-time top 5 movie character for me. The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, although he's kind of more of like kind of a dopey hero that just kind of helps save the day by circumstance more than just being a badass. And then Wyatt Earp in Tombstone.
He's still a badass in Big Trouble. It just following the reflexes.
Yeah. He's kind of a dimwit though, but that's I love Jack Burton though.
If we're talking about like on the scale of how badass is Kurt Russell, I think The Thing is kind of high middle of the road. Like I don't know, I think Tombstone is probably my favorite, like Kurt Russell being an all-time badass. So if that's a 10, I'd say The Thing's maybe a 7 on the Kurt Russell being a badass scale.
Yeah, it's not super high on the scale, but I think it still cracks the top 5, probably.
Okay. Last one is sombreros in movies.
No, I don't think so. Not for this one. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but no.
No, not my favorite use of sombreros. I was trying to think of something funnier to say, but no, I wouldn't.
Well, I'm just trying to think of a better use of a sombrero in a movie outside of like Speedy Gonzales.
Three Amigos is funny. I like them. They have sombreros.
Okay, there's Three Amigos in. There's Speedy Gonzales. There is stock 1950s through 1960s Western villain or heavy.
Yeah. I mean, the Zorro movies, the ones from the 90s, they had sombreros. Yeah. I don't think they had them like as a joke or anything. They just had sombreros because that's what they wore.
And then what was that Disney movie where the Three Caballeros or something like that? Did they wear sombreros?
Oh, yeah. Three Caballeros, yes.
Okay. All right. So it does not crack the Hall of Fame for that. All right. No. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute joy to spend the last hour and a half with you talking about The Thing. I'm glad, Kohl, that we were able to get you back on the show and you were able to do this one. I know this is probably when I discussed doing this podcast. This is one that I think I told you when we'll do The Thing to get you on the show. And, of course, we delayed that by 2.5 years. But
yeah. Well, I remember the first crossover we did with The Crow. You guys came over here and we played The Crow board game. I actually bought The Thing board game before I even had The Crow board game, waiting to play it with you guys for this episode. But,
So now we need to play The Thing board game.
Well, I think we could get Lucas to watch the Thing movie. I think he wanted to do The Crow instead, so I think that's why The Crow was the pick for that one. Well, I love The Crow, but I love The Crow, but I prefer this movie.
Yeah, I guess that's something worth asking because the 2011 wasn't technically a remake. How would you guys feel about a remake of this movie?
Of the Thing? I actually, when we were talking about that, I don't think it should be remade, but I guarantee you at some point that it will. I even have my, as we were doing this, I had my choice of who I think could do MacReady, and I would nominate Matthew McConaughey.
Okay, yeah.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would like a remake. And sequels and prequels are done all the time. I think I would prefer maybe like a retro film, one that's done like this one, but it takes place at the same time. I think that would be cool, like somewhere else in the world, not Antarctica.
Well, I've always been of the belief that I'm okay with a remake if it is a movie that could be improved. This movie doesn't need to be improved, so why remake it?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
the
think it'd
effects
be
are still
cool.
good.
I like I don't like the movie Prey, but what they're doing with Predator now, where they're just going to put Predator in different points in time. I think the next one is like in World War II. That I would like to see something like that, kind of what you're saying, Adam, where it's just a different place or a different time with this same kind of creature. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think like The Thing in feudal Japan would just be really sweet. Be really sick.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think because even feudal Japan, they had different like not firearms per se, but they had explosives. They could kill the thing if they wanted to. So,
All right. Well, good stuff, gentlemen. I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and I keep saying this, we do have a TikTok account that I need to get better at posting at. The show links for those accounts are in the description. If you dig what we're doing here at the show, please be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review. That way, when you search Kohl King from the Knights of Degradation podcast said The Thing is the greatest movie from the 1980s, our show would be one of the first ones that pops up in those search results. So be sure to give us a 5-star review. It does help support the show. So until next week, we will talk to you guys later.